is a set of all positive and negative whole numbers and the value 0. Notice 0 is not considered to be positive, nor is it considered to be negative. So you have your negative values that are always going to consist of the numbers to the left of 0. All the numbers to the left of 0 are negatives. And we've got -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, and so on and so forth. All of the positive numbers are to the right-hand side of 0. So we have +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, so on and so forth. Okay, please make note. Yes, dear. Please use the same colors that I do. Okay, please make note again that 0 is considered to be a neutral value. It is neither positive nor negative. So make sure that you write that down if you need to go over this. 0 is neither positive nor is it negative. Okay, it is its own value. Hence the reason it called it the ringleader of the fight club or the integer club. Okay, it's also important to notice that the further to the left of 0 you get, the smaller the number is, right? But if you look at the actual value, like -8 is smaller than -2, but we always know 8 as being bigger than 2. But when you put a negative with it, the larger the base number is, the smaller the negative value is going to be worth. Vincent? Okay, that's what you need to get then. Moving on. So the smaller the negative value, it means that you have a larger base. So for example, -2 is greater than -7. -2 is greater than -7. So this is something very important to make sure you keep in mind. When you are putting them in order from least to greatest, if it's got a negative sign to it, you're looking for the largest base to put in the very beginning, because that is going to be the one that is the smallest negative value. It's the one that is the furthest away from 0. Okay, so again, -2 is greater than -7, and the greater than sign is the one that points to the right. So -2 is greater than -7. So what I want you guys to do is you're going to use your signs. In case you don't know which sign is which, I've written them down. This is our less than sign. This is the greater than sign. That's your equal to sign. You're going to identify which of the statements are. So fill it in with a less than, a greater than, or an equal to for each of the problems. Go ahead and take a moment to do that. All right, let's go ahead and go over this for problem number 1. -17 is blank to -12. Is -17 less than, greater than, or equal? Less than. It is a less than symbol, so we're going to put the little arrow pointing to the left-hand side. It is a less than value. For number 2, -5. Is -5 less than, greater than, or equal to negative? Greater than, so it's going to point to the right. Very good. And then number 3, -7 compared to... -7 is greater than. Thank you, Kaya. Okay, it is going to be a greater than symbol. Okay, now putting them in order from least to greatest. So if you know which ones are considered to be the smallest values versus the largest values, go ahead and place them in order from least to greatest. Remember, again, the larger the base, the smaller the negative value is worth. Go ahead and put those in order from least to greatest, as well as set number 2. All right, let's go ahead and place them in order from least to greatest. Who would like to volunteer for problem number 1? Okay, go ahead, Michaela. Okay. Very good. So -5 and -2, those are our integers that are negatives. 0, of course, is that neutral value. And then from there, we have the positives ranging in the proper order that we know, 3 and 7. What about for problem number 2? Go ahead, Angel. -4. Very good. Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay, so we have -4, -2, -1, 0, 1, 3, and 5. So you're basically looking at it as how you would order it on a number line. That's how you would order it without it. Okay, let's talk about vocabulary. So there are a lot of terms that come off with either a negative integer value or a positive integer value. So let's discuss some terms that we know that can indicate that a value is a negative without it coming right on out and saying, hey, this is a negative. So I'll start with a basic one. The term less. Less can have a negative integer value to it. Can somebody tell me another term that we might use to indicate a negative value? Huh? Smaller. Okay, so we could do smaller. Or maybe below. Right? What else? Okay, subtract is more of an operation. Okay. What about if you go to the bank and you take money out of the bank, what is that called? Anybody know? Not a deposit, it's a withdrawal. So withdrawal. Okay. If you're in an airplane, and the plane is decreasing in its height, they call that a descend. Okay, but the word decrease can also indicate a negative. Okay, a drop. These are all terms that could be used. Okay, if it drops below as a certain value. Okay, so these are some terms that we know for the negative. Now let's talk about their counter positives. Okay, what would be the opposite, guys, of less? Okay, greater or more. What's the opposite of smaller? Larger, bigger. What's the opposite of below? Above. What's the opposite of a withdrawal? Deposit. Opposite of descend? Ascend. Very good. Opposite of decrease? Increase. Opposite of a drop? Raising, right? Rise. Okay, so these are just some terms that might indicate to you that you're dealing with a negative or a positive integer. So go ahead and get those copied down, then we'll go on to our next page. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So on our next page, what we have here is some scenarios that we're going to identify the type of integer that we're dealing with. So if I say that there was a gain of 6 pounds, is that a positive or a negative? Positive. So right next to it, you can just write a plus sign and then the number 6. That is a positive 6 that we are referring to. What I want you to do is go through problems 2 through 9 and identifying if we're talking about positives or negatives, or could it be talking about the value 0? Okay, let's talk about this. A loss of 10 yards. Positive, negative, or 0? Negative. So we're going to write negative 10. 1,000 meters above sea level. Positive, negative, or 0? Positive. So positive 1,000. You owe $50. Negative. So it's a negative 50. Ground level. 0. Very good. That's going to be the 0 value. 17 degrees below 0. Negative 17. Sea level. 0. Okay, depositing $142. Positive. And then descending 2,500 feet. Negative. Very good. So for here, we're talking about absolute value. Now, absolute value, that's a distance. That's a number that represents the distance that a value is from 0. So I'm actually going to go back to the first slide real quickly. For the first page, Absolute value is just how far away the number is to getting to 0. So if I wanted to say, okay, what's the absolute value of the number 5? How far away is 5 from 0? 5 spots, right? If we're looking at it, it is 5 jumps to get to the 0. So that's just 5. It's distance that you're traveling. Okay, if you're driving a car and you suddenly decide to go ahead and drive in reverse like you're in a movie, is it going to make the odometer go backwards? No, it's still going to calculate distance. Okay, if I'm driving on the interstate and I'm going north, oh, I went north 5 miles. Oh, but I forgot something, so I turned back around and went south 5 miles. It doesn't change the odometer. It's not going to say, okay, well, hey, we're going to take those 5 miles back because you're now going backwards. Okay, it is a distance that you're traveling. Traveling distance is always positive. So 5 is 5 spots away from 0, just the same as -5. -5 is also 5 spots away from 0. So absolute value, when you take the absolute value of a number, it's always the positive version of that number. Okay, so looking here, the absolute value of a +4 is going to be a +4. The absolute value of a -30 is going to be a +30. The absolute value of a -4 is going to be a +4. Now, if we are working a problem out that has absolute value in it, absolute value acts as if it's parentheses. You do parentheses first, right? PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It's parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, then followed by addition, subtraction. So your parentheses, your absolute value, is just like parentheses. You have to do this portion first. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that as the part that I'm going to answer first in my problem. So what is the absolute value of -3? 3, right? The absolute value of a -3 is a +3. Well, then I have the statement 3 minus 5. So then I would do 3 minus 5. Does anybody know what 3 minus 5 is going to be? Not 2, -2, right? Let's take a look at our number line. If I'm at 3, and then I'm going to subtract 5, that means I'm going to move to the left 5 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I end at a -2. Okay, so I wind up getting a negative value. So this is -2 as my final answer. Now here I have the negative of the absolute value of -15. So again, we're going to do that absolute value of -15 first. And that negative sign that's on the outside is just going to stay on the outside. So what's the absolute value of -15? 15. And then what is the negative version of 15? -15. Okay, for problem number 6, we have an actual problem inside of the parentheses. So we have to solve that problem first. So who can tell me what is 4 minus 7? If I start at 4 and I subtract it 7 to the left, what is it going to land on, Michaela? -3. So we now have the absolute value of -3, and then we have a +9. Well, what's the absolute value of -3, guys? 3. And then we have 3 plus 9. What is 3 plus 9? 3 plus 9, guys? 12. So there's our final answer. Okay, so what you're going to do today for the rest of the class period, in Google Classroom, don't do it yet, just listen to directions. In Google Classroom, there are 3 IXL links as well as a Prodigy game link. You need to complete the 3 IXL scores to what? What's the SMART score? a 70. You need to get it to a 70 in order to be able to get the full credit for it. If you want extra credit, what can you go up to? An 80. If you want an extra credit, you could go to an 80 instead. Once you're done with all 3 of those IXL skills, you'll then go to the Prodigy game. In Prodigy game, I have created just 8 questions. It's naturally embedded. You don't have to click on anything inside of Prodigy. You just play, and it'll ask you the questions. Once you're done with those 8 questions, continue playing, because then there's a placement diagnostics test that's going on in the background. Any questions about what you're doing for today? All right.